Hey guys, how's it going? So good to see you. Welcome to Breakfast All Day. Christy Lemire here, and I'm thrilled to have a new friend joining me today for our one of our big reviews of the week. Carlos Aguilar, the hardest working man in film criticism. He is everywhere all the time. He is freshly back from the Key West Film Festival. He writes for the LA Times and TheWrap and IndieWire, and he interviews Pedro Almodovar and titans of film and remains like the sweetest guy. So I'm happy to see you, Carlos Aguilar.
Thank you for having me, Christy. That's the best intro I've ever gotten. So thank you so much. You're overselling me.
No, it's all true. It's all true. You work your ass off. But one of the main reasons I wanted to have you, besides your great insight into film, is that you happen to be an animation expert. And so I wanted to ask you to help me talk about this latest Disney film, Encanto. What is it about?
So Encanto tells the story of the Madrigal family from the perspective of Mirabel, the young daughter, one of the young daughters in the family, and she is the only one in this family who didn't get a extra sort of power, a superhuman power from the miracle that saved the family from harsh times. And so the house that they live in is a sentient magical house that sort of communicates through the windows and the doors. And she has family members who have super strength and who can speak to animals, and so all sorts of like wonderful things. But she's very much a normal young girl. And so the family is about her discovery of what she brings into this family, what her role is, and sort of clashing with the grandmother, Abuela Alma, and following her journey to discovering, the family sort of secrets and the dynamics of it all in this very colorful version of Colombia.
Did you like it?
I did. I did not adore it as other films this year, even animated films, but I did like it. There are things that I feel work wonderfully, and other things that I'm still a little confused or feel like are just overstuffed and convoluted about the plot and the mechanics of it all.
Like what? Like what didn't work out for you?
Well, I mean, I feel like, I was not that they have to like explain specifically what the miracle is, but a lot of that felt a little bit sort of like vague to me in terms of like this candle. And then, I was like, is it the soul of another character? I don't want to spoil it. Was it the soul of like someone that passed? Does it mean, is it just random magic from the country? Or, so I felt like there were a lot of things that to me were like, why and how, and maybe that's just me trying to overthink the plot, but in general I feel like it's just like, if you don't think about those things, I think it's just enjoyable.
It's very beautiful. It's very colorful and lively. The central premise of it is like as basic and standard as you can get in an animated movie about like, you were magical all along. It was in you all along. You just had to tap in and find it. And we've seen that in countless animated movies, but there's sort of an off-kilter sense of humor here, like a weird streak through it that I really enjoyed. It is a musical. Lin-Manuel Miranda, the ubiquitous Lin-Manuel Miranda, wrote the songs, and it is not the kind of hip hop cadence of Hamilton or In the Heights that we've gotten so accustomed to with him. It's more in the vein of like his music for Moana. Right. And so, but there's also like a weird streak to like what their powers are. Like they're not traditional like superhero powers. Like some of them are weird. Like one aunt can make the weather change, but all that really amounts to is like a cloud follows her wherever she goes, and like is the manifestation of her anxiety or whatever she's feeling that day. There are a couple of really standout numbers. I don't know what you thought about the music, but a couple of songs I loved. I love the "We Don't Talk About Bruno" song. Mm-hmm. I love that. And I love the song in which the sister who has super strength is lamenting the pressure that she's constantly under. What do you think of the music?
That one is probably my favorite of the songs that sort of like serve as exposition for the characters. Because, a lot of these songs, with plenty of the work of Lin-Manuel, the songs sort of deliver the inside world of these characters. There's so many characters in this movie that oftentimes the one moment that you get to really experience who they are is in this song. And I think with Luisa, the sister that has the super strength, that was like, it's just also just very visually funny. The sort of things that go along with that song, I think there's really work really well. I did probably love the most the ballad that happens in the sort of like the peak emotional moment of the film. It's called Dos Oruguitas, Two Caterpillars, I think it will be in English. And so it's like a Spanish language ballad that, feels sort of like very emotional, and it plays in a very, to me, the emotional core of the movie that I wish there was more of that. But so that one to me is like, because it's so different from the other ones, I also feel like it probably resonated with me more, because like I really could, separate it for all the other songs that are more about the characters explaining who they are.
Yeah, there is a lot going on here, isn't there, in terms of like the mythology of this family, a lot of which, as you say, you just got to go with. Like, why do they get powers? Why are they the powers that they are? There are so many people who live in this giant, I mean, to call it a house, it totally undersells it, because it's like a complex. And as you mentioned, like it's alive. And so that is really clever in small ways, like the way it'll make things more convenient for you. If you're trying to make a cup of tea or do
Right.
laundry or whatever it is, like it anticipates your every move and kind of caters itself to you. And that is kind of cool. But one thing you wrote about in your review for TheWrap that I want to ask you to elaborate on, and this is something that had never occurred to me, and this is why one of the many reasons I'm happy to have you here, is that you made a great point about how so many animated films, when they are about a specific culture, they place it in like a faraway rural setting. Can you expand on that? I really love the insight that you had there.
Yeah, I mean, because I feel like I still think that for the general population of the United States, the vision that they have of Latin America, of Africa or Asia, it's still very much like this pastoral, rural sort of settings. And to an extent, as wonderful as Coco is, I'm actually wearing a shirt from like when they play at the Hollywood Bowl. As much as I love Coco, it is still a version of Mexico that aligns with that, right? With like people that live in the countryside, that dress a certain way, and and live in houses that are like not city houses, and the same with Encanto. It's sort of like not specify what time period it is, but but it is like in the countryside. They wear like these colorful dresses, and so I feel like I would love to see a movie in which Latin America, is like Mexico City or Sao Paulo, or like sort of like a bustling sort of metropolis, and how that would look in animation. Because even with something like Raya, it's a sort of far away version of Southeast Asia that's also like traditional. It's not, today. I think the one exception could be like the Neo Tokyo in Big Hero 6. Mm-hmm. It's like a futuristic, but like I feel like Japan is already always seen as like very much like ahead of the curve. But with Latin America, I think to feel that the depictions of it, are very grounded in this idea of like the past or the rural or the ride donkeys or things like that.
And maybe they do that to give it a certain timelessness, like to amplify the fairy tale quality of this story. But you're right; it's such a stereotype. It's like, who lives like that? A lot of people in Colombia do not live like that. So why can't we see different depictions? Yeah, I was racking my brain after I saw your review and you made that point. I'm thinking like, that's true, except for Big Hero 6, where it's like San Francisco, and then Inside Out takes place in modern day San Francisco, but most of that is, so interior to Riley and her experience. Maybe also they feel like that gives them an opportunity to create a more colorful palette, but it seems it's such a basic thing to fall back on. It's a great point that you make.
Yeah, I think Neo Tokyo is from an anime, not from Big Hero 6. You're right, but yeah, and I guess you're right. I feel like it allows them to sort of make it more like undeniably Latin America, or like just be sort of like like what's the word I'm looking for, not like a symbol, but just sort of like emblematically Latin American, timeless, as opposed to like in a city perhaps, if it looks too close to, if Mexico City looks too close to New York or LA, it loses perhaps the charm of like we're in another country. I don't know, I just feel like maybe there could be a balance there, and how they're depicted. Of course, we're a long way from the Emperor's New Groove, in which like no one that's Latino was cast in that voice cast. Like the country and the culture are sort of like in the background. As much as I think that movie is hilarious and great, it really feels like for that 20 years ago, Latin America was just like the backdrop for a comedy. So this is better, but I still feel like I wish we could see the urban or metropolitan side of Latin America one day.
Right. It's a predominantly Latin American cast here. One of the writers, I mean, Charise Castro Smith is Latina.
I believe she's Cuban
right?
American.
Is she?
Yeah.
And so it's, it's she's one of the three writers, the two. Oh, and she's a co-director too. Now that I'm looking at it, yeah. But the other two directors are like white dudes. But you have, it's a really good, it's a great voice cast. Like John Leguizamo has a key role here. I would have loved to have seen more of him because he brings, again, more of like a weird, bizarre energy to it. Stephanie Beatriz as Mirabelle is great because again, it's sort of tough to be the glue at the center, right?
Right.
Because everyone else has these crazy personality traits and she's got to just be like our conduit at the center. And she brings a lot of life and a lot of pathos to that. What do you think of the performances?
Yeah, I think she's great. I feel like, when you have to be the more mature person or like someone, the one that doesn't have the superpower, I feel like, she conveys that very well. It's a character that wears glasses and, it's kind of like nerdy or whatnot. So I feel like she was a great choice for that. And she has done so much voice work that I think she was great. I also noticed that, for example, for the abuela, for the grandmother, there's the speaking voice who is like a Colombian actress, and then the singing voice is Olga from In the Heights, who plays the abuela in In the Heights.
Oh.
Olga Meredith. And so I feel like that's also like, Lin-Manuel bringing, Stephanie Beatriz is also in The Heights. And so I feel like it feels, sort of like a lot of like completing circles in the Lin-Manuel Miranda sort of like universe.
The cinematic universe.
The cinematic
the
universe.
LMMCU. Yeah, that scene in The Heights with the abuela on the subway is like the killer scene. That's like the best number of them all. Yeah, the songs here are pretty catchy. It's funny. My son is 12 and he's my frequent plus one for things. And he insists that he hates musicals, but he's been listening to the songs from the soundtrack and like singing them around the house. And he's full of shit because his favorite TV show is Bob's Burgers, where they just burst into song all the time. So
I think Stephanie Beatriz is also a character in Bob's Burgers, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, she has done a lot of voice work and she's great. So yeah, I had a good time, but it's not breaking new ground by any means. I mean, I guess culturally it is, but in terms of the story it's telling, perhaps not so much.
Right. And I do wanted to bring up a point that I was talking to someone else about the fact that I like Disney villains and we are really being denied from like villains. And I feel like it's a decision that, they've done in the last few movies of like, we don't want a villain to be embodied by a person. Perhaps like they don't want, I feel like now the villains are like this magical forces, like even in Frozen, like Frozen 2 is like this weird energy, and in Raya is also like this entity without, like amorphous kind of thing. So I feel like, maybe Coco is the last villain that I could recall that is like a villain that you feel like he's an evil villain doing bad things. So I feel like we've stepped away from like, and again, it's probably one of those things of like, oh, we don't want to say anyone's really bad or whatnot, but I do like the idea of like, having this embodiment of like the bad things that people do, and they're usually the funniest characters in Disney movies. So
right, well, now they are redoing all of their animated classics and live action versions, and so that's where you can see your villain. Gal Gadot is the evil queen in Snow White, so you get your retreads there. Anyway, what is your number, my friend? Out of 10, what would you give it?
I'll give it an 8. Okay. I think I liked it, but it probably won't be among my top Disney movies. But I think it's still, wonderfully animated, and there's some highlights. There's some like standout moments for sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna say a 7.4. So our numbers are 7.7. Encanto, I don't think they're putting on Disney Plus, right? They're putting it just in theaters, correct?
Yeah, it's only in theaters for a while. I'm sure it'll make its way probably next year to Disney Plus, but for now, It's only in theaters.
Well, if you are out there with your family and you're feeling comfortable over Thanksgiving weekend about seeing a movie together, this would be a great choice. It's a lot of fun. Everyone will, I think, respond to it on some level. So Encanto is out there in the world. Carlos, folks can find you on Twitter where?
Yeah, at Carlos_film. And that's usually where I post all the reviews and things that I'm doing.
You are all things to all people. You are everywhere. The man sees everything and has really great insights on everything. So thank you for spending some time with me, Carlos. I appreciate you so much. Will you please come back?
Of course. Thank you, Christy. It was a lot of fun. I'll come back anytime.
That would be great. And thanks to all you guys for watching, listening, wherever you are consuming this after you've eaten turkey. We are at Be Fast All Day on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. Our Patreon is patreon.com/BeFastAllDay. We are in the middle of Hawkeye. Hawkeye is out there for your enjoyment on Disney Plus, as well as The Great on Hulu. And this week we're going to do the Feast movie that our Patreon subscribers voted on. You guys picked Chef Jon Favreau has a food truck. So we're going to talk about that. You're all wonderful. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you real soon. Bye.